the BWU meets with RDC workers. The central bank governors say on the privatization of state-owned enterprises. And Barbadians urge to volunteer their skills to help geriatric hospital patients.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
A very good evening to you with this Thursday, November 1st edition of the CBC Evening News. I'm Ryan Broom. In our top story, the Barbados Workers Union has met with workers of the Rural Development Commission, or RDC. That meeting took place this morning at the RDC's Bridge Street headquarters. The union's consultant and former General Secretary, Sir Roy Trotman, says many of the concerns raised by the staff will be discussed when the BWU meets with officials.
There are some concerns which the workers have, and we will express those concerns in writing to the leadership of the RDC, and hopefully we will meet again very shortly so that those matters can be discussed. We will in that case be looking, among other things, at whether voluntary separation packages will be worked out, at whether, with the plan that there may be for a merger between the urban and the rural development commissions, whether there will be the need for us to look at a new set of criteria for addressing any further rationalization that may become necessary.
Now, the former General Secretary also stresses the last in, first out principle needs to be observed.
So ring fencing by the Commission is nothing that we would accept. We think that there's an understanding that in the circumstances last in, first out is required. We can't then start picking any special group of people that we would want to make them more special than others.
There are several things government must take into account when considering privatizing state-owned enterprises. The suggestion from Central Bank Governor Cleviston Haynes. He says in the case of the transport sector, much of the service is already provided by the public sector. Mr. Haynes says government must weigh the possibility of greater efficiency through privatization versus the need to protect the country's most vulnerable. He was speaking during the bank's latest review of government's economic performance.
What is critical once you take that decision, what mitigating measures are you going to have in place to deal with those who are disadvantaged? For example, at present, the elderly are allowed to travel free on the buses. So even if you were to privatize the transport system, you may still want to maintain an element of subsidy such that you're able to protect your most vulnerable.
And Mr. Haynes says steps would also need to be taken to ensure a certain standard of service is maintained once the sector is privatized.
There must be a regulatory environment that ensures quality of service. And quality of service includes both the frequency, the timing of buses, the general conduct of those who work in the industry, such that it is not a quote-unquote free-for-all.
The indebtedness of Caribbean countries can be attributed to the high costs and processes of seeking to become compliant with international standards. That's the view of noted economist Professor Avinash Prasad. He was speaking at the Caribbean Regional Compliance Association conference being hosted at the Hilton Hotel.
I would argue that the current compliance and regulatory regime we have has contributed in no small part to the region being the most highly indebted region in the world, because compliance costs money. I would argue this compliance and regulatory regime has contributed to the decline in correspondent banking relationships, has contributed to the unbanking of an increasing amount of ordinary citizens, has contributed to problems of remittances flowing back to our region.
Now, Professor Prasad believes Caribbean islands should collaborate to establish a system to track money laundering trends.
I would recommend the whole region does that. We could, if we had a regional database of this, it will be actually cheaper for us to do. We could make it even more independent, done by an independent entity. And that will be a measure of outcomes, not process. Where are the routes and paths of money laundering in the world? There are a number of court cases around the world. And let's trace the paths and routes and find really where they're going. And where they're going in a meaningful way.
CARICOM member states could see their debt burdens lightened once a new initiative by the CARICOM Development Fund gets off the ground. Chief Executive Officer of the CDF, Rodinald Sumer, revealed that the fund will be expanding its portfolio of services offered. He says, cognizant of the economic challenges many of the member states are facing, the fund will be establishing an interest subsidy grant program.
We are hoping that we can at least offer this product before the end of our cycle in 2020 to one or two interested countries. So we hope that we can have it significantly advanced by about the middle of next year. A lot depends on the preparedness of the countries to cooperate with us in sharing certain data, because of course that data is confidential. We hope that we'll get their cooperation, and if we do, we should be able to launch that product sometime in 2019.
Now, Mr. Sumer was speaking during a press briefing at the CDF's offices in Haggett Hall, where he also gave an update on the fund's performance over the past decade and planned activities for their 10th anniversary. He says at the end of 2015, the CDF committed to over $51 million in funding through various country assistance programs, and by the end of 2018, that figure is expected to have risen by over $20 million. The CDF CEO revealed that another program they will be offering is a credit risk abatement facility, which will encourage the involvement of the private sector and focus on renewable energy.
We bridged the gap in the gaps in the market, both on the supply and the demand side, to incentivize the banks, including the development banks, national development banks, to provide more concessional loans to SMEs for renewable energy and energy efficiency investment. So there's a combination of management of credit risk, technical assistance to improve project design, to improve bankability, and to improve the understanding of the banks of the potential for financing more investment in the energy sector.
Compliance professionals have been heralded as key groups in helping to rebuild Barbados' economy. Attorney General Dale Marshall highlighted their importance at the Caribbean Regional Compliance Association conference being hosted at the Hilton Hotel.
Compliance professionals are vital to the continued health and viability of your organizations, and that you and your organizations are ultimately part of the economic future and focus of countries like ours in the Caribbean.
The Board of Directors of the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation, or BADMC, has rejected reports made in another section of the media about its restructuring program. In a statement issued this evening through the Government Information Service, the board states that the BADMC's CEO, Sean Tudor, was made aware of plans to make that entity fitter and stronger at a board meeting on August 28th of this year. It explains Mr. Tudor also attended meetings in October with the board's establishments and audit and finance committees, where plans were announced that the expenditure needed to be reduced by $600,000. The statement also outlines some of the reasons for the retrenchment. They include, but are not limited to, an unsustainable wages and salaries bill, losses in the farm stores of over $127,000 for the first 9 months of this year, and a need to address the inefficiencies which exist within the BADMC's operations. Now, in all, the board says it intends to terminate 60 employees, and the NUPW was notified of this, along with the Chief Labor Officer. The BADMC's board says the retrenchment program is based almost exclusively on the last in, first out principle.
3, 2, 1. Thank you to the Merrymen.
That's popular Barbadian band The Merrymen flicking the switch this evening to light up the city. Thousands of Barbadians gathered at the National Hero Square for the event. The 2018 Sagicor Life Incorporated lighting ceremony seeks to stimulate an awareness of nationalism through the use of yellow and blue lights across Barbados. This year's theme is celebrating community spirit, embracing our culture. Now, Minister of Culture John King, in his address, said culture must be placed at the forefront of national development.
The Sagicor Life Inc. lighting ceremony will set the stage for many community activities organized by the Parish Independence Committees in collaboration with church groups, schools, and community groups. These activities will be taking place in communities across the island in celebration of our nationhood. Through the Community Independence Celebration Secretariat, which was established in 1995, we have witnessed the growth of a number of programs which are used to enhance our community life and build community spirit. One such program is the Lighting Program, whose aim is to stimulate awareness of nationalism using the national colors and other national symbols.
More Barbadians will have an opportunity to volunteer and offer their skills to geriatric hospital patients. It comes as the Association of Friends of the Geriatric Hospital will be launching a volunteer program from next year. The association's president, Cecilia Mears, believes the initiative is timely.
We will be launching, in partnership with the Geriatric Hospital, a volunteer program where persons across our Barbadian community will have an opportunity to give back. The program will be formally set up, and persons desirous of assisting can sign up and indicate their specific skills or areas of interest.
Now, Ms. Mears explains that young people will also have a chance to interact with and learn from the early contributors to Barbados' development when its Gen Link program is relaunched.
We will also be relaunching the Gen Link program. This program provided an avenue for our young people to spend time with the elderly, bridging the generational gap. It provided an opportunity for our youth while providing comfort and cheer to our elderly to learn about our history.
In other news, the level of work by artists in the Goddard's Literary Arts Competition proves Barbados hasn't lost this art form. For Chief Judge Adonijah, who is now in his third year judging the competition, he says he has seen improvements in the writers.
They've come to meet the judges' sessions, they've spoken with the judges, they've taken what they've been told to heart, they've gone back, they've worked at the craft, and they've come in next year much better. And that's a really beautiful thing. It is a really developmental process as far as the literary arts competition is concerned.
And title partner Goddard Enterprises Limited has been supporting literary arts for 20 years. Group Human Resources Manager Glenda Jilk says it's heartening to see their sponsorship has helped develop several artists.
I have been informed that there are numerous local writers emerging on the regional and international scene who have come through this program and have been able to hone their skills and use their talents in writing novels, screenplays, producing poems and stories, and generally making their mark on the literary world.
Some news from the education sector now. The Ellerslie School is embarking on a continuous anti-violence campaign. Acting Deputy Principal Ronald Leacock explains it will incorporate different subjects and disciplines. He was speaking following a recent visit of the Peace Begins With Me team at that school.
In that way, we'll be looking at art, through poetry, through drama, and any other form that we can sort of bring to the fore, you can put up. So that's where we are going next with the program here at Ellerslie. So I'm really looking forward to the change, the positive change that this start can bring to the school.